We're on a mission to reshape the global food system by transforming food waste into protein and fertilizer with insects. And we really address two major problems. The first one is food waste. Food waste is going into our landfills and breaking down into methane, which is significantly more potent than CO2 and contributing to greenhouse gas emissions. But on the other side, we still have a huge need to create a sustainable agriculture system that can feed the planet and the growing population, and significant challenges in front of us preventing traditional systems from being viable to secure that food future for everyone.
Some records or statistics saying there's about 30 harvests left of soil at current rates of depletion. So we need to radically address soil conservation. Phosphorus is another issue that's, phosphorus is a critical element for life. It's part of most of the proteins, DNA, fats. It's just such an important molecule. Currently, it's produced by mining phosphate rock, absolutely critical element that cannot be substituted with anything else. It's currently being mined, fertilized, and a lot of it ends up in our waterways and into the oceans where it can't be recovered. So it's a linear system.
You may be aware, or you may not be, but there's a particular parasitic mite that's slowly spreading around the world that's causing horrendous damage to beekeeping industry and the ability to effectively produce food right around the world. And Australia is literally the last major country in the world that doesn't have this parasitic mite, and that's called Varroa destructor. So in the US and again in New Zealand, when that mite's become established in the environment there, both industries seen about 50% of beekeepers leave the industry. To give you an idea of how bad that is, we were working with a beekeeper in the US who ran 30,000 hives, which is a large operation, and they had problems with their Varroa mite treatments one year, and they lost 27,000 out of their 30,000 hives. There's nearly 100 different food and fibre crops around the world that are completely dependent on pollination to produce a crop or a crop of commercial scale. In Australia, pollinated horticulture or agriculture is worth about $14 billion a year, yet the honey industry in Australia is only worth about $100 million a year. So bees are a critical part of the agricultural system in Australia.
The big two things that Geordie talked about with me and that we recognise from the start is that we have a massive waste problem across the planet. And I think everyone's in agreement there. There's no disagreement on that one. Most manufacturing is pretty efficient, but there's still a massive amount of food waste and plastic waste that occurs. And what drove Geordie really to start Grape Up was seeing the amount of plastic waste that really was coming from especially the wine industry. So we know 1/3 of the world's food is wasted. We know it produces about 8% of greenhouse gases. In Australia, just from that food waste, it's about 3%. But each year we're wasting about 7.6 million tonnes of food. So it's a massive amount of food that's wasted. And Monash has really been working on actually validating a lot of these numbers and starting to move more into this waste reuse space, which we're kind of seeing across the board at a lot of universities. And with plastic waste, so many tons of plastic waste is produced every year. There's some good numbers there for you, but a really big one that came out of at least 2020 was some research with CSIRO and the Monash Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering that conservatively estimated about 40 million tons of microplastics on the ocean floor. So we know we have a problem, and the only way we can solve it is with people who care and are dedicated and want to create solutions to these problems. So
we are really focused at AgriDigital on solving particular pain points that plague supply chains. So that's really our deep focus, is looking at what the digital supply chain of the future is going to be like, and being at the forefront of providing infrastructure, both from a software and inventory management perspective, but also from a capital perspective. Biggest problems that our customers face are access to best-in-class technology to compete with the very large multinationals that are out there who dominate our supply chains, but also access to capital.